Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn. On this, as I look back at the latest episode of television's best show, Snowfall, season 5, episode 5, the Iliad. Um, the Iliad part 1. Just to get a quick recap, this episode was wild. This was a action-packed episode that really showed a family in crisis right now as Franklin is fighting for to keep his quote unquote empire alive. So Franklin, Franklin and Jerome, Franklin, Jerome Louis, Franklin Jerome and Louis and Jerome refused to get in business with Franklin as far as the investment deal, even when Franklin lowered the price. You had that going on. Franklin wasn't happy about that. You had Franklin then, and along with Jerome, Louis, and also Leon, all over the course of this episode, get attempts on their lives in 3 separate hits. We'll talk more about that. You had Teddy Mack get shot and almost die before being saved by an old friend. You had, again, this story was, again, you had Franklin, Oso, and Teddy basically nearly helpless and really needed, these 3 powerful characters were, really basically were on their own. Over the course of this episode, you have Sissy still talking to the guy who who is of course connected with trying to take out Teddy this season, but Sissy found out that he wanted even more than that. So a lot going on in this episode. We're gonna get right immediately into themes. Family crisis. The Saint family, this empire is in crisis, period. They not only with the hits, the attempts on their lives, but none of them, right now, no one's on the same page. I mean, Jerome, Franklin, Louis are not on the same page. Again, we have I would say Franklin and Veronique or someone are basically on the same page. They basically want the same thing. But Franklin's inner circle is really struggling right now. No Peaches in this episode. We found out, they can't find Peaches. We'll talk more about that. So, he's missing right now. You have a situation where Franklin's real estate dreams have been basically put on hold. And again, his empire, everything that he cares about, everything that he's worked hard to get to this point too, is on the line right now. So this is definitely a family. He doesn't even know about what's going on with Sissy and what she's trying to do with Teddy Mack and that whole ordeal. We're going to deep dive the hits. These were 3 hits. This episode, of course, was called the Iliad, which was, kind of was based on, a war in itself. That, it's a classic book, of course, written by Homer, and a lot of things based on family, war, relationships, fate, things of that nature. And a lot of those elements, though we know they didn't exactly, this is not going to be exactly like what the Iliad was, not even, but there were a lot of those themes from the Iliad, a lot of that kind of could be connected to this episode and what Franklin is going through right now. I mean, you can call, Franklin you can call Franklin Achilles. And he has this empire right now that is just completely under siege. Right now, we don't know. No one knows who did these hits. The thing about the hits is they were well orchestrated. They were executed. Obviously they didn't kill any of Franklin's peoples, but they got it. They attempted to. They got his attention, and then some. And they knew, whoever coordinated these hits clearly knew Franklin's schedule. They clearly knew his people's schedule, and they clearly knew that this is something that has been in the works for who knows how long. Remember, this series is 5 years old. And over the course of 5 years, when you're a drug kingpin, and you get to the level of Franklin, you have a lot of enemies. There's a scene, and we'll talk about it. We'll certainly talk about it later on, and when we get to best scenes. But I'll leak it a little bit now. When also, Gustavo says, hey man, you got to know your enemies, which is which is virtually impossible when you're talking about being a kingpin in the drug game. There's no way you can know every single enemy because you have people who smile on your face who may be your enemy. You just don't know. But there's clearly whoever coordinated these hits is clearly somebody I feel from Franklin's past. And we can speculate. It's not Peaches. No, it's not Peaches. Diamond Dallas, no. Scully, no. Just eliminate. I will wipe all those particular characters away as far as being candidates. There's no way. No one, none of them. First of all, none of them have the intellect to pull off something like this. This is somebody who is frankly is borderline. This person. This is somebody like if you thought if Man Boy was still alive, something like this. I don't even know if Man Boy could pull this off. Like it's like a Man Boy type move. Like maybe Man Boy if his character was still around and he rose even higher than what he was. This is somebody who is very cunning, very calculated. Again, this has been planned to me. This has been planned for years. This is not just something that's been planning throughout the course of the season, though. This has been going on. So whoever did this has been planning this for years. They know Franklin is getting revenge on Franklin. So again, the first name to come to me when I think about somebody like this is, Kevin. You remember Franklin killed Kevin in season 2? Yeah, season 2 when Franklin killed somebody. I believe it's somebody connected to Kevin, to be honest with you. Because again, that's 3 seasons ago. Kevin was close to Franklin, close to Leon. Leon, of course, did not like, he still harbors some ill will, a little bit of ill will towards Franklin. Behind that, especially it showed out, especially in season 3. It showed out in a little bit last season as well when they had that big argument at the beginning of last season when he also and Teddy Mack at the club. So I think it's somebody connected to Kevin. Of course, you remember Kevin, played by Malcolm Mays, who's on Power, who's on the Raising Kanan right now, and has been in a couple other things. Who Franklin killed in broad daylight in season 2. And end up, Teddy Mack ended up getting him out of jail, and basically in that season, that season 2 finale. So I think it's somebody connected to Kevin. That's my little conspiracy theory. But this was somebody that whoever was doing this knew knows the organization inside out and has basically scouted the organization forever. Remember, Franklin's organization has been fluid over the course of the last couple of seasons. It's changed. He has different people around him. But the main players, Leon, Louis, Jerome, those main players are the same. So that's my opinion. We will find out next week. I already read the synopsis for next week's episode, the Iliad Part 2, where they said the hit person will be revealed. And so we'll find out who it is next week. But to me, it's going to be somebody that was connected to Franklin's past and just wanted to exact revenge. And they've completely just shaken him up and put their family on notice, to say the least. Best scenes, we talked Franklin, Jerome, Louis, Veronique. Beginning of the episode, you see them, you see Franklin and Veronique try to convince Louis and Jerome to do the investment, which they lowered the price. Remember, it was a 10 million buy-in, $10 million buy-in. They Franklin cut that price in half, and not only that, they didn't. Veronique said that they would only need 10% of that, so $500,000, which clearly Louis and Jerome have. They've been raking in the money for this past season. So it's not even about the money. It's about that there's still that under that tension between Franklin and Louis, and Louis tries to deny it, saying that I'm not gonna let that get in the way of what we're doing. Wouldn't let that get in the way. It's not that. It's the fact that we have we're trying to do our own thing. We don't we're not trying to be in business with you like that or connected with you like that. And Franklin plays it cool in front of them, but when he leaves the room, he is visibly upset. Veronique tries to calm him down. Veronique offers him another option as far as how to go about talking to Jerome and Louis, and she suggests that Sissy intervene. So, and we will see that episode, not episode, that scene later on. So Sissy and Ruben are at the same diner. Ruben, again, he's you know, we don't get his exact position, but he's something, he's working something for the government. That clearly is going after Teddy Mack, but instead of, he basically tells Sissy this thing is bigger than just Teddy Mack. Like if they got rid of Teddy Mack, there will be 10 CIA people waiting to take his place. We need something on Franklin, not to um not to hurt him, of course, but to protect him. We need to know everything about Franklin in order to protect him. He tries to convince Sissy to bug Franklin's office with this pen and leave it in his office. And I first of all, here's the flaw about this scene to me. And I very rarely criticize this show, but are we assuming that Franklin is going to talk business in that office? Like, how often is Franklin in one place? Franklin, Franklin does not spend a lot of time in one place. He's constantly on the move. He's at home. He's at the club. He's making drops. He's never really at one place all the time. So I don't know how effective bugging his office would have been. And he really doesn't talk. Most of the talking he does is at the club, as far as when he's as far as drug shit. Like he really separates the drug shit from the real estate talk. So I don't know how effective bugging that office would have been. Now maybe he would have figured that out. Maybe Ruben would have eventually figured that out and said, hey, maybe where else is he? But then listen, Sissy wasn't having it. She was not going to ever. She made it clear that she was not going to betray her son in any shape, way, or form. Listen, she learned from Al. Okay, like even if she thinks it's for his best interest, she knows Franklin at this point is deep in the game, and she does not want to do anything to betray that trust like his father did in the last season. So she basically told him, yeah, you gotta find another way. Ruben basically says this is going to be. We don't know how we can help you without knowing everything about him. So they're kind of at a standoff from that standpoint. Ruben kind of tries to smooth things out by saying, take your time and things of that nature. But Sissy makes it clear that she's not going to she's not going to not going to do it for now. Franklin, Gustavo, Teddy, and Teddy Mack. So they meet for the usual drop at that place, of course, that Teddy Mack set up, and then the warehouses that were bugged last episode or a couple episodes ago. And immediately you knew something was off when Franklin had a different bodyguard. He says that Peaches is sick. We know where that's going. Let's be honest. Peaches probably has HIV. Like that, we can kind of see where his storyline is going with the the sniffling in the first episode, and then being sick the second. I feel like we kind of get where that's going. So Peaches, Teddy Mack kind of takes a shot at Franklin, saying, "Hey, you giving out sick days," and Franklin says, "Hey, you got to take care of your people for unless they, unless got to take care of my peoples so they won't go behind my back." I think that was kind of a subtle shot at Teddy Mack a little bit. Before they even say another word, a van pulls up and starts spraying shots. Teddy Mack gets shot badly in the shoulder. He, just says "fuck it" and pulls off. Which, by the way, I heard a lot of people on the internet knocking that, saying, knocking that move and saying, he left him. Like, what else was he going to do with a bullet in his shoulder? Like, he like Teddy Mack actually, like, there was nothing else that, I mean, I can't blame Teddy Mack for that one. That was self-preservation. Like, everybody, they had a car as well. It's not like he was the only one with the car. Like, and um Gustavo and Franklin had a car as well. So I can't blame Teddy Mack for that. Gustavo gets shot, but it's turned out to be a flesh wound. He and Franklin get away, but the car is banged up, and they had to pull over. They had to pull over not long after Franklin crashed into the van and were able to get away from the van. Um, Gustavo Franklin had the money. Okay, they have the money, $3 million in cash, but no ammo, no gun, a gun with no bullets. Gustavo lost his gun. They are in this this gang. They're in the part of the neighborhood that is heavy on with gang activity, and even Gustavo is looking at some of the graffiti on the walls, and graffiti on the walls and on the buildings, and is not. You see Gustavo a little nervous, knowing that they're not in a good part of town from that standpoint, and they're on foot with $3 million, like in two duffel bags. So they get jumped uh, by some youngins who saw the bullet hole in one of the bags that had money in it. Now those Franklin pulls out a gun, chases them away, but some other guys who are armed, who are heavily armed, start chasing them. They end up getting away, and they under a house, and wait a little bit until the guys are gone. So we'll get back to Franklin and Gustavo. We have Jerome, Leon, Sissy, Veronique, and Louis. Now, so first let's go Jerome, Veronique. Let's go Jerome, Veronique, and Sissy. So they meet up at a restaurant, and Sissy and Louis as well. They meet up at a restaurant, indoor outdoor diner. Sissy tries to talk them, basically saying, look, if you don't want to invest with Franklin, so be it. But ultimately, your empire is going to crumble. What is your plan to get out? What is your out plan? Because this is going to crumble again. You could say Sissy has felt this way throughout the course of the series, and I was always looking for an out with the real estate, and hope that the real estate would provide an out for Franklin. When basically that's not realistic, because Franklin is in so deep. But she sees the cost of the game that they're in, and sees cost of the game that they're in, and before the conversation could even go further, and Jerome gets gets a beep from gets a page from Franklin, gets to the phone eventually, as a guy was already on there, and Franklin ends up talking to Franklin. Franklin tells him, "Hey, we've been hit." And next thing you know, Jerome and Sissy and Louis are all getting shot at. They survived. A bunch of other people died, patrons, waiters, and things, and civilians. About 5 or 6 of them die. And Sissy and Jerome and Jerome, Louis are harassed by the cops, and they have to have a favor from Buckner, the cop that Coach Jerome doesn't like, that Louis knows from the club, that they kind of know who she's clashed with. So he gets them out of it. Gets them, gets them out of it as far as being further harassed by the cops. Um, you have Teddy Mack. So Teddy Mack has a bad shoulder. He gets shot, and he finds his way to a some ex. I don't know. It was a girlfriend, somebody he used to clearly work with, clearly knows, who was a surgeon, now is a nurse, and she, chides him and basically, basically makes fun of his current situation, before eventually doing surgery on him. And she does some, the thought of doing surgery and seeing somebody in a vulnerable position turns her on. And, she begins to, begins to masturbate while Teddy is, basically halfway out of it, or almost out of it. She sees Teddy. She says that Teddy has to pay her $258,000 for it, which we know, of course, he has the money. But then she goes to his trunk of his car and sees that he has a bunch of cocaine. So we'll see what that eventually leads to. Um, Getting back to Gustavo and Franklin. So Gustavo and Franklin have, again, they're on foot. They leave the money under the house. So, they leave the money under the house. They want to find a house to break into, or with a sliding window that has a phone, so they can make another call to see, to get any updates. And before the phone, they go into this house that has stuffed animals. And I'm not talking about, children's stuffed animals, but they have animals that have been stuffed. Somebody who clearly has killed a bear and alligators and has had those animals stuffed. So you know that this is something. This might not turn out well. This was not going to turn out well for either one of them. So they go in that house, and as Franklin is hanging up the phone, when he not hanging up the phone, is putting down the phone, as the phone is dead, you see these, they get shot, with both of them with darts, tranquilizers, and are put to sleep. And we find out, and next thing you know, they wake up. When they do wake up, in the final scene, they are in a cage with a tiger. So I don't know what, and that's how basically the episode ends. I don't know what, I don't know how they're gonna get out of that. This guy clearly is, you know, is a basket case, who seemingly, this old dude who's a veteran actor, Raymond Barry. He's been in a bunch of stuff. I mean, he's been around forever. Matter of fact, he was on, I forgot what sitcom he was on, but I know he's been around for a long time. So he plays the creepy old man. And again, this guy, you would think that he hadn't been out the house in about 10 years. I mean, this guy was, it was very creepy. It was kind of like Teddy. It was kind of like the episode of Atlanta, where the dude, where they had that fake Michael Jackson, kind of, when they were seemingly coming after, talking about Michael Jackson. I forgot the name of that episode was Teddy something. It was one of the better Atlanta episodes ever. I mean, I know it's only been 2 seasons. It'll be back next week, but that episode was one of the better episodes in the history of the show. But kind of like, this dude was like kind of like that character, from the standpoint of just being Howard Hughes, like just stuck in the house, and just basically separated from everyone, off the grid mentally. He definitely was off the grid mentally, even though he was in a regular neighborhood. But again, he has them in a cage next to he has them in a cage, and he has a tiger in a cage that's right next to their cage. So we'll see what happens with that. I I'll marry. There were a couple of people. There were a few people that did not like, that thought that was kind of sensational, and kind of out there. We'll see. I trust the writers from that standpoint, especially up until this point, especially there were some doubts when the late John Singleton passed away about the direction of the show. The show's been great since. All due respect to John, R.I.P. John Singleton, but the show's been great since. So I trust the writers, and I've loved each and one of these episodes up until this point in season 5. So the last thing I want to address in terms of scenes is we see a scene with Jerome, Leon, Sissy, Veronique, and Louis back at the club. So of course, Jerome, Leon and his crew got attacked too when he's trying to pick up his guns from Avi. And Leon shot the dude that was one of the passengers. It wasn't the driver, it was the passenger. Now, when Leon walked up to the dude as he's lying dead, and one of his dudes pulled the scarf over his face, I didn't get, some people might interpret that as like Leon knowing the dude, possibly. I maybe if this is if it's the Kevin theory, he exactly might know the dude. I took it as Leon didn't want to kill another black man. So Leon's on this, kind of like this Black Panther revolutionary type ordeal. But I do think that Leon probably knows that dude. I really do. I think that Leon probably might be familiar with that dude. I would not rule that out. But it looked, he had a very specific look on his face when the scarf was pulled from over the dude's mouth. So we go Jerome, Leon, Sissy, Veronique, and Louis. They're talking about who could have hit us, trying to plot out their next move. You have Jerome immediately talking about going not after Peaches, but trying to find Peaches. You have bringing up Diamond and Dallas. So the family's trying to basically circle the wagons to see, how trying to make sense of all this just craziness that happened over the course of one day. So they force Sissy and Veronique to stay at the club as they go and hit the streets and go. Jerome and Leon go hit the streets looking and searching for answers. MVP, whoever this mystery hitman is the MVP. Like, again, these hits were coordinated. Now again, they didn't kill any of Franklin's people, but they made some serious damage. They did some serious damage to that empire. There's no two ways about it. This, moving forward, the family and what transpires will not be the same moving forward. Whether, again, Franklin's going to survive this. He's the star of the show, but this is not going to be the same. Like they're going to their family is split up even that much more. Remember, we talked about it last episode that the family was already on shaky ground as a whole. In terms of Franklin didn't have that many friends right now that, other than Veronique, and we're not even sure about her, and what her motives may be. But now, the family is almost broken, to be honest with you. Like Louis, Jerome, Franklin clearly are not on the same page. Franklin doesn't know about Sissy. And again, who knows who this mystery hitman is? I speculate that it could possibly be somebody, that is connected to Kevin, or somebody that's connected or somebody from Franklin's past that wants him to go down. I mean, think about the dude that Franklin killed a dude in season 1, and when his boys went to prison. Remember when his boy went to prison? I don't know. It could be. Listen, you become a drug kingpin, and you get to the level of Franklin Saint. There are a myriad of enemies that you have. So, again, I love this episode. It will be part 2 next week, and we'll be back here to talk about another just phenomenal, great episode of the best show on television, Snowfall. That's going to wrap it up. His latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast, season 5, episode 5, the Iliad, part 1. Have a great rest of your evening. So long.